Hi, this is Samantha Alderton. I teach social science at San Marcos High School. Thanks for joining me today as I guide you through my BTSA inquiry project. My question was, what active participation strategies can I implement during close reading and annotation instruction to improve student proficiency in analyzing complex nonfiction texts? The standard I addressed was, students will determine a central idea of a text and analyze its development over the course of the text, including how it emerges and is shaped and refined by specific details. Provide an objective summary of the text. I took my students' work samples and World Studies team goals into consideration as I developed my inquiry question. After grading the World Studies performance task and classroom assessments, I knew that students would benefit from focused annotation instruction and close reading practice. At the beginning of my project, I completed a professional development course on the topic of creating performance tasks. This professional development helped me focus on selecting rich, complex texts and designing questions and tasks that are authentic, rigorous, and aligned with standards. Additionally, I participated in Advanced SEDI, where I learned numerous active engagement strategies that I adapted to teaching annotations. I became good at adapting SEDI strategies to help me meet the objective. I like SEDI strategies because they appeal to all students, from freshmen to seniors. The novelty helped with motivation, and I was able to set high supported expectations that helped my students meet the objective and develop their English language proficiency. I delivered instruction using technology, the 4 C's, and differentiation. Students practiced digital annotations in class and on their own as they were working on their art detector project. Students were engaged in communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking about text as they were participating in SEDI strategies. I wanted to ensure that all students, including English learners and students with IEP or 504 plans, would be successful with my unit. I used differentiation strategies, including heterogeneous groupings, sentence frames, and reteaching to ensure the success of all students. Over the course of the project, my support provider observed 2 lessons. During the first lesson, the students were learning the steps of annotation and completing a window pane. Afterward, I led students through guided practice of annotation and finally released the responsibility to students as they completed independent practice. Here is a brief clip of students participating in the window pane strategy.
Second thing you do is on the left. Third thing you should do is
Modeling, repetition, and guided practice helped the students be successful with this lesson. During my second observation, students were reviewing their annotation strategies. I selected a brief text that summarized the purpose and strategies of annotation. Then students created poems with a partner about annotation. There was a pre-assessment and a post-assessment. The pre-assessment was a single document analysis, and the post-assessment was a performance task that I designed. Here are the results of my first focus student. On the left, you'll see that the student was disorganized, circling random parts of the text and scribbling disconnected notes. On the right, the student has become much more focused and purposeful. The student included a metacognitive key, chunked the text, labeled the markings, and used both margins to organize his thoughts. Analysis on one side, summaries on the other. It is much clearer in the second assessment that the student is thinking critically about the text. The second focus student has also made strides. On the first assessment, she did not mark the text at all. She simply wrote a couple of notes. On the second assessment, she has developed in the areas of organization and summarizing. The student has organized her markings by creating a metacognitive key, chunking and marking the text, and using the margins for a specific purpose. What is the author saying versus what is the author doing? The final focus student has improved her margin notes. On the first assessment, she did not make any notes. She simply underlined and circled some words. On the final assessment, she has used her margins to summarize the reading. She has also begun to organize herself by chunking the text. Class outcomes were positive. On the pre-assessment, 75% of the students were not proficient according to the San Marcos High School annotation rubric. However, by the post-assessment, 76% of the students were either proficient or advanced. All three focus students met or exceeded the target. The first focus student exceeded the target, going from a rubric score of 2 to 3. The second focus student exceeded the target by going from an assessment score of 1 to 3, and the final focus student went from a rubric score of 0 to 2. Teacher outcomes were also positive. My ability to select complex text and design effective questions and constructed response prompts has increased. The project also reinforced the impact that we as teachers can have on students when we set clear goals that are supported by an action plan. It also reinforced the value of focus students. Sometimes the number of student needs that we are responsible for can feel overwhelming. However, it was rewarding to see that I did make a difference to these students, and that makes my job worth it. Throughout the project, my thoughts on teaching annotation, close reading, developing performance tasks evolved. As I reflect upon the process, I have lingering questions that I will continue to explore with colleagues and on my own. I believe that I was successful in giving my students a tool belt from which they can now draw when confronted with a challenging text. However, I wonder whether grading annotation takes away from the authenticity. While I believe annotation is an important skill, I wonder whether students are using the tools authentically or if I am reinforcing rote memorization. Then there's the question of what kinds of text are we asking students to annotate. When students are given a fairly digestible piece of text, yet asked to annotate, I wonder what effect that has. I suspect it reinforces rote production of markings and summaries. Going forward, I think I need to be conscientious about the type of text I ask students to annotate. Is it something worthy of reading closely and reading more than once? Thank you for considering these questions with me and for viewing my presentation.